This is the disassembly video of a Nova 700. This version is vert feed, most are right feed, but they're all pretty similar. So here we go. Some of these are hex and not Phillips head, and I will actually be posting a link to a Facebook page that has been started. It's basically what's left of any Nova owners group that may exist. But they're pretty simple guns, but it seems like a lot of people have problems with them. So it looks like the other guy likes some orange paint. But they're pretty simple once you understand how they work and all. They work better with the screw in there. I will say that this gun came to me working, so it's kind of nice. There's a set screw inside the trigger here that this Allen key sits in, and it actually attaches to this rod. Hopefully I have the right Allen key. Need to replace that screw. I will be posting all the O-ring sizes, all the screw sizes, and hopefully the spring sizes, if I can get those as well. I have been doing a lot of hunting on Nova parts, and I currently sell O-ring kits. Do not buy the O-ring kits that are on eBay. They have the wrong sizes in them. That person followed a a guide that had a typo in it. So you can see this piece. This is like the trigger rod and sits inside the trigger, and then you lock the set screw down through here, and that's what actuates the three-way that's in the body here. So you can see this little brass piece back here. You will have to reset that to a certain distance, and the distance I don't really know off the top of my head. I just know how to set it, and I'll do that in the reassembly videos. It's really important to have a good set of Allen keys and that all the screws aren't stripped. It'd be a real pain. There we go. So some of these are they're set screws, like small set screws, and pretty sure they're all the same size, which makes it convenient. And I want to say 632, but don't hold me to that. I'll have to check. But this is this set screw holds this brass piece in, which is just a spacer for the trigger rod to float in, and the set screw that goes on top of that just keeps it from backing out. And so now you can see these set screws are gone and the brass piece is there. And what I do is I take my O-ring pick and I pull this spring right here forward, and you'll see it move that brass piece. And you want that brass piece to come completely out, so sometimes I have to push from the back a little bit, and it'll fall out. So this is just a hollow brass insert for the trigger rod to float in. And then you can see the tip of the three-way. These sometimes are difficult to get out, and I like to just gently tap it on something, and hopefully there's enough lube on it to get it out. If not, then you kind of just gotta get it out as best you can. Right now I'm pushing more on the spring in the back of the trigger housing, and what that does is it pushes the piece that holds the relief valve or relief O-ring. So there you can see the three-way coming out, and it actually comes out through the front hole. So make sure it comes out through the front hole. I think it will fit out through the bottom, but I always pull it out through the front hole. And there you go. These are the same. These are clippards. They are not rebuildable. You can replace these O-rings, but you can't pull them apart and then recrimp them. It's kind of disappointing. But this is the relief valve O-ring and spring. This is the spring you're pushing on in the back of the rear frame screw hole. And this O-ring, I know off the top of my head, is a 006. And if it leaks from the side of the gun in here, I'd say the majority of the time it's this O-ring. Whether it has dirt on it, doesn't have enough lube on it, whatever, it's this O-ring. Okay, so now we have everything out of the lower, the trigger housing, and we're just going to pull that last screw out. So this gun definitely was not taken apart by me before the video, if you couldn't tell. And this one, this screw definitely is the first one to put back in when you take the gun apart, because once you have the reg seat, O-ring, and all the other stuff in, well, I cleaned that pretty good. Once you have reg seat, O-ring, and all in, and the spring, you can't access that spot for the screw sitting. So here's what the top of the frame looks like. This spot right here is where your relief is going to vent. If it's this O-ring, and it's pretty easy to check. You just check and see if it's leaking out of this hole and say, alright, well that's it. So that's the disassembly of the trigger housing. If you want to take the grip off, it's just this screw from the ASA. You pull this off and pull that off, and then there's a plate with two other screws, but you don't really ever need to take that off unless you're replacing the grip or something. So now we have the body. A lot of people have problems getting these body parts apart. What I take is I take a long Allen key. I used to have some rubber on here, but that kind of wore off. I take an old Allen key, a long one. What I do is I put this end on the mat, and I put this end on the spool. Has to be on the spool, and you'll see if you look down the center of the gun, it is the center dot, the furthest most piece. I'll see if I can actually. You'll see where the Allen key is right there. This is the spool, and it actually springs back and forth, and it's supposed to. But what I do is I take my Allen key, and this part will be off video, but I just push it on the spool and put my hand over the top where the regulator is so I don't lose any parts. So this comes out, and that's the regulator. Don't lose your spring. Still don't know the spring sizes yet. Here's your spool and your spool end cap. And those are the major pieces that'll come out. Now, the rest of it, I pull out, normally I pull out the back, and I just kind of use the flat spot on the Allen key. And sometimes it moves, sometimes it doesn't. You can tell on this one, oh, there we go, it'll go up front. Ooh, that's yummy. Okay, so this is the breech. It's got 2 O-rings on it. Some of them have detents, some do not. Most do not. So inside of that, you have a brass clip right here, and then the spool housing. I'm going to try and get both of those out. And 1 second. Sometimes they get a little stuck, so I'll take the back end of the handle, a good old hammer here, and just gently tap. Sometimes those O-rings, yeah, they seize up a little bit. Alright, so when the sound changes, you know it's at the back. And it should just gently come out. Like that. And you'll see there's all kinds of crud on there. And the brass ring, you can see, is still in there. Still see it's in there. And it doesn't really need to come out. It's just a spacer that goes between the spool housing and the breech. And it just ensures that you have enough room so that everything lines up. Now, I sell O-ring kits. I sell them through the Facebook page. And one thing I want to identify is this is a 5 O-ring spool. Okay, there are 5 and 3 O-ring spools. I don't know which the O-rings are 3 O-ring spool off the top of my head. I know it's this one, and I think this one. But I'm not really sure off the top of my head. So I have O-ring kits for both, but I need to know which kit you have or which spool you have, because they are different kinds of O-rings. So it's very important that you tell me correctly which spool you have in your gun. Yeah, so that's the disassembly. I'm going to clean this up, and I'll do a reassembly video as well.